Have you ever found yourself just thinking, what if things were completely different? I don't mean, a small tweak to your phone or something. I mean a whole new reality, like a fundamental shift in how society works. Well, today we're going deep into a world of design that doesn't just solve the problems we already have. It actually tries to create new realities, really push the boundaries of what we even think is possible.
Mhm.
So, the main source we're digging into for this deep dive is a really, really thought provoking book. It's called Speculative Everything Design, Fiction, and Social Dreaming by Anthony Dunn and Fiona Raby. And let me tell you, this is not your typical design manual. Not at all. It's more like a fundamental challenge to how we usually understand what design can do, maybe even what it should do.
And that's exactly our mission here, isn't it? With this deep dive, we want to explore how design can really move beyond just, making things easier to use or look nicer for consumers. We'll see how it can become this really powerful tool, a tool for asking fundamental questions, yeah, for challenging those assumptions we all hold, sometimes without even realizing it. And importantly, for inspiring totally new ways of thinking about how the world could be.
Okay, let's start with this core idea they introduced right off the bat, their AB manifesto. I found this a really insightful way to kind of categorize different ways of designing.
Yeah, it's a great framework. So on one side, you've got what they call affirmative design, the A side. And this is probably what most of us think of when we hear the word design.
Right, like problem solving, fixing things.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Problem solving, giving answers, often aimed at mass production, serving industry needs. It's often about making us buy stuff, focusing on, user-friendliness, incremental innovation. This A side, it's fundamentally dealing with how the world is right now.
Okay, the status quo makes sense. So what's the contrast? What's the B side?
Okay, the B side. This is critical or speculative design. And here, the focus shifts. It moves from problem solving to problem finding. It's much more about asking questions than providing neat answers. It's about designing things that spark debate, things meant for discussion, not just for the market. The idea is it serves society by making us think. They talk about creating functional fictions and exploring the unreal real.
Okay, hold on. Functional fiction. So these aren't just like sci-fi stories. They're meant to do something.
Precisely. They're not just entertainment. Think of them more like tools, maybe like prototypes of alternative realities. They're designed to be functionally provocative, to make you engage with these ideas.
And the unreal real. What's that about?
That's about exploring concepts that aren't physically real yet, but they could be, or the implications of things that could be real. And because they could be real, they demand our serious consideration right now. So it's all about digging into how the world could be. And maybe even more importantly, how we might need to change ourselves to fit into that imagined world.
Right, so it's crucial to get that B isn't supposed to replace A, is it? We're not saying throw out all normal design.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
That's a key point they make. B is meant to add this vital complementary dimension, something that sparks deeper discussion, gets our collective imagination going.
So the way I'm seeing it is A helps us make the current world run smoother, more efficiently. But B gives us the tools to actually reimagine the world, maybe shift our priorities from just efficiency to thinking about ethics, about values.
Exactly. Moving from just asking how to
Yeah.
really questioning why. And this shift, it becomes incredibly important when you look at the big picture. A lot of the massive challenges we're facing, climate change, resource shortages, the ethics of AI, you name it, they often seem kind of unfixable by traditional A design alone. They're too complex, too systemic.
Yeah, you can't just design a better recycling bin and solve climate change.
Right. They demand fundamental changes in our values, our beliefs, our attitudes. And speculative design, the B side, can be a catalyst for that, for collectively rethinking our relationship with reality itself.
Wow. That really opens up a huge space for thinking, doesn't it? Where do we even start mapping out these possibilities?
Well, Dutton and Renby offer a really useful model for this. They talk about cones fanning out from the present into potential futures. Each cone represents a different level of likelihood or possibility.
Honed, okay,
Yeah.
like widening possibilities.
Sort of. First, there's the cone of probable futures. This is the zone where most designers usually operate. It describes what's likely to happen if things carry on pretty much as they are. No major wars, no huge environmental disasters, no economic collapses. Most design education, the tools we use, they're geared towards this path.
Okay, so that's the default setting, more or less, our baseline. What's next?
Next, you move out to plausible futures. This is more the territory of scenario planning. Think about how companies like Royal Dutch Shell famously used this back in the 70s to anticipate oil shocks. It explores what could realistically happen, even if it's not the most likely thing. It helps organizations prepare for different economic or political shifts.
Right, so broadening the scope beyond just the most probable path, getting ready for alternatives.
Exactly. Then the third cone represents possible futures. This is where it gets really interesting for speculative design. Here, the main challenge is connecting today's world, our reality, to the imagined one. It has to be scientifically possible. It can't violate fundamental laws of physics or biology as we understand them now.
So no magic wands.
Right, and there needs to be some kind of believable path, even if it's fictional, to get from here to there. This is really the space of speculative culture. Think science fiction novels, films. And interestingly, when people build these scenarios, experts are often brought in. Not necessarily to say, no, that's impossible, but sometimes to help make the possible seem acceptable, maybe even desirable.
That's a fascinating twist, making the possible palatable. So it's moving beyond just what might happen based on current trends to what could conceivably happen based on science, however strange it seems now.
Absolutely. It really stretches the imagination. Now, beyond that, there's a zone they call fantasy. For Dunn and Raby's purpose, this is too far removed. We're talking fairy tales, goblins, space opera that doesn't really connect back to our world. They're less interested in that for this kind of critical work.
Okay, so grounded possibility, not pure fantasy. Got it. Is there another cone?
Yes, there's one more important one. Preferable futures. This cone overlaps with the probable and the plausible. It's about exploring what people actually want to happen. What kind of future do we desire? And design's role here is to give material form to those desires, to help put things in place that make those preferable futures more likely to become reality.
Okay, so we have probable, plausible, possible, and preferable futures. It's quite a map. But why does it sometimes feel like our collective ability to dream big, to really envision these different futures, especially the preferable ones, has shrunk?
That brings us to a really crucial point Dunn and Raby make about what they term a shrinking reality in design. And they connect it to some significant historical shifts.
Okay, what's behind that?
Well, first, they argue that after the 1980s, design got sort of superficially absorbed into the neoliberal capitalist model. Its main focus became generating wealth, driving consumption. Anything else, any other possibility, started to seem economically unrealistic or just not viable.
So if it didn't make money, it wasn't considered serious design.
Pretty much. Then second, think about the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989. The end of the Cold War. It felt like alternative societal models just collapsed. Market-led capitalism was seen as the winner. And you have figures like Margaret Thatcher famously saying, there is no alternative. That phrase itself just shrinks the horizon, doesn't it?
Yeah, Emma, it really shuts down imagination.
It does. It marginalizes social dreaming, dismisses anything outside that narrow economic frame as just fantasy. Third, they point to society becoming more atomized, more individualistic. The sociologist Zygmunt Bauman talks about this in Liquid Modernity, the shift towards individual responsibility, less state support. While that brings certain freedoms, it can also mean more isolation, less collective action or dreaming.
The bowling alone idea, perhaps?
Something like that. And finally, there's the impact of events like the 2008 financial crash and the ever-growing undeniable data on climate change. Dunn and Raby suggest this has led to a shift, especially for younger generations. Instead of dreaming of grand new futures, the focus becomes more about hoping for basic survival, hoping there'll be enough water, enough food, hoping we don't completely mess things up. It's a very different emotional landscape.
That's quite a sobering trajectory when you lay it out like that. From dreaming to just hoping. So how do we reconnect with that spirit of dreaming? What's the antidote?
Well, they argue we need a pluralism in design. And crucially, this isn't about different visual styles. It's about embracing different ideologies, different values through design. Design, in this view, should be actively creating other possibilities altogether, not just variations on the current theme.
Okay, let's make this more concrete. Let's talk about some actual examples. How are designers putting this unreality into practice? How does conceptual design work?
Right, conceptual design really operates by defining what things could be, pushing beyond the everyday. We see it everywhere, actually. Take fashion. Back in the 60s, you had designers like André Courageous, Pierre Cardin, Paco Rabanne. They were true visionaries, exploring space-age ideas, often totally ignoring practicality for the sake of the concept.
Yeah, those iconic silver dresses and geometric shapes.
Exactly. Then later, in the 80s, Catherine Hamnett brilliantly used fashion for activism with her huge slogan, T-shirts like "Nuclear Ban Now," making protests fashionable.
I remember those, very direct.
Very. And more recently, you have people like Hussein Chalian. His airplane dress that transformed on the catwalk,
Mm.
pure conceptual genius using technology. And brands like Comme des Garçons or Martin Margiela, they consistently create clothes that are highly conceptual, often playing with materials and shapes in ways that challenge social norms, but they're still, wearable.
It's fascinating, too, how designers like Serre, whom you mentioned in the notes, really push fashion. It's not just about clothes anymore, is it? It feels like conceptual expression, making you think about identity, consumption, sustainability, all through a really distinct look.
Absolutely. It becomes a statement, a wearable piece of critique or speculation. Then there's furniture design. It has such a rich history as a vehicle for new philosophies about everyday life. You can go way back to someone like William Morris, who was essentially doing critical design, embedding his ideals about craft and society into his work, intentionally pushing against the industrial norms of his time.
Right, arts and crafts, a reaction against mass production.
Precisely. And for more whimsical modern example, there's that bottoms-up doorbell by the Dutch group Droog. It uses inverted wine glasses that chime when the doorbell rings. It's simple, fun, and totally conceptual.
Huh, I love that. It just subverts expectations for such a mundane object. I definitely want that.
Me too. Then you have concept cars. That's a classic area. From Buckminster Fuller's teardrop-shaped action car way back in the 30s.
Which look like nothing else.
Right. To Mark Newson's little 021C concept for Ford, or Chris Bangle's G&A concept for BMW, which had this fabric skin that could change shape.
Wow, shape-shifting cars.
Yeah, amazing stuff. But Dan and Arabi point out that concept cars often focus more on styling, on imagery, maybe new tech, rather than digging into the bigger social or cultural questions about transportation itself.
So more A than B often.
Often, yes. Though there are exceptions. They mention Ito's Evo Mobile. It's this futuristic personal mobility pod that looks uncannily like an old-fashioned sedan chair. That really makes you think differently about transport values, right? Not just speed and efficiency.
Definitely makes you think about status, service, energy, very different.
Okay, then there's product design. This is often the toughest area for conceptual work because market expectations are so strong.
People expect products to just work, solve a problem simply.
Exactly. There have been brave attempts, like the Normo phones back in the day or Daniel Weil's really conceptual radio designs from the 80s. Often they weren't commercial successes.
Too far ahead, maybe? Or just not fitting the mold?
Probably a bit of both.
Yeah.
But you do see glimmers, like Holger's Plumen light bulb. It's energy efficient, but it also has this really striking sculptural form. It succeeded by being both functional and conceptually interesting.
That's a great example. It stands out.
And there are other fascinating projects, too. Marty Guichet's work is often very conceptual. His Meta-Territorial Kitchen System 3 involved these abstract models of open-source kitchen parts. They weren't meant to be real kitchens, but to celebrate the propness of the idea.
Propness, like props on a stage.
Kind of, yeah. Ideas made physical, but highlighting their status as ideas. He also did a solar kitchen restaurant. The whole concept was flexible dining based on solar power. He even noted that, lunch might get canceled if it rained. It forces you to think about energy constraints in a very direct way.
Huh. That certainly grounds the dining experience.
Doesn't it? And Philips Design had their Design Probes initiative. One project was the microbial home. They imagined the home as this integrated, sustainable ecosystem, almost a biological machine, handling cooking, waste, energy. Again, the goal wasn't mass production, but to introduce new values, to shift thinking about domestic life.
Viewing the home as an ecosystem, that's a powerful reframe.
It is, and you see other examples like Mark Newson's incredibly sleek Elvin 40 concept jet or Marthel Wander's playful, oversized objects like a mosaic-tiled car. They bring a kind of surreal, imaginative quality to industrial design.
So what ties all these together?
What's really fascinating is how all these designers use objects not just for their function, but as conversation starters, boundary pushers. They really show what a kind of theoretical form of design, one dedicated purely to thinking and questioning, could actually look like. Okay, so building on that, let's dive a bit deeper into what Dunn and Raby specifically mean by critical design. They describe it less as a rigid method and more as an attitude, or maybe a position you take as a designer.
An attitude.
Yeah. It uses these speculative proposals, these objects or scenarios we've been talking about, to actively challenge our assumptions. Assumptions about the role products play in our lives. In essence, it's positioned as the opposite of that affirmative A design we discussed earlier.
So it's about critique. Is it just negative?
That's a really important clarification. No, it's not just negative criticism. And it's also not the same as academic critical theory, though it's related. It's really about employing critical thinking. The skill of not just accepting things as they are, being skeptical, questioning what's presented as normal or given.
Okay, thinking critically.
Right. But where critical design differs from just, say, critiquing a badly designed chair is that it applies this questioning to broader issues. Social, cultural, ethical issues that go way beyond just fixing an existing product.
Okay, so it uses designed objects to make us think critically about bigger things. Can you give us a powerful example of that?
Definitely. One project that really exemplifies this is something done in Reet did with the designer Michael Anastasiades. It was part of a collection called Do You Want to Replace the Existing Normal?
Intriguing title.
It is. And one piece was that statistical clock we touched on briefly.
Ah, yes, the one that counts fatalities. Tell us more about that.
So this clock would search online news feeds for reported fatalities, and it would categorize them by the mode of transport involved: car, train, plane, etc. The owner could then set the clock to a specific channel, say car,
Yeah.
and the clock would then just speak out the daily number of car-related fatalities sequentially, 1, 2, 3, throughout the day.
Wow. That's unsettling.
Deeply unsettling. And that was exactly the point. It's a stark reminder of, well, the fragility of life. But more than that, it hints at this parallel world where products could serve existential needs, even if there's absolutely no commercial market for them. People generally don't want a clock reminding them of daily deaths, right?
No kidding.
And its power lies precisely in that discomfort, in making us confront something we usually ignore.
That clock is incredibly potent, but it also feels quite confrontational. Do Dunn and Raby suggest design needs to make us uncomfortable sometimes to be truly critical or effective? Or is there a risk it just becomes alienating and people switch off?
That's a really perceptive question, and it gets right to the heart of critical design's balancing act. It's not about discomfort for its own sake, not gratuitous shock value. The discomfort is intended to be cognitive, intellectual. It's a disruption that forces you to pause, to question your assumptions.
Mental friction.
Exactly. If it's too alienating, if it's just bizarre or offensive, then yes, people dismiss it. It fails. Its effectiveness lies in sitting right on that edge, the edge of believability, the edge of acceptability. It creates that moment of intellectual friction, that what if moment.
Okay, so it needs to be relatable enough to engage with, but strange enough to provoke.
Precisely. And if we connect this back to the bigger picture, think about consumer power. In our society, our choices about what we buy literally shape reality, don't they? Production follows demand. The sociologist Eric Olman Wright makes his point that refusing to consume, things like voluntary simplicity, can actually be a powerful political act, a form of protest against the prevailing system.
Like voting with your wallet or not voting with it.
Exactly. And governments know this. During economic crises, what do? They stimulate consumption, try to get people spending. Why? To literally create economic reality. Because demand drops, the whole system falters.
Right. Consumption drives the engine. So critical design is trying to interrupt that somehow.
It's trying to make us question the values embedded in that engine, yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes that involves using what they call darkness.
Darkness in design. That sounds ominous. Tell me about that.
Well, using darkness in critical design is meant as an antidote to all the naive techno-optimism we often see. The idea that technology will solve all our problems without any downsides.
Right, the utopian view.
Yeah. So darkness here is about using negativity, but using it positively to create what they call cautionary tales. A really good example is a project by Bern Hoffengartner called Belief Systems. It imagined a future where shops use machines to read customers' micro-expressions, their fleeting facial movements, to gauge their reactions.
Wow, like Minority Report, but for shopping.
Kind of. And in this scenario, people might then try to consciously control their facial muscles to hide their true feelings from the machines.
That's creepy.
It is. And designs like this, they deliberately provoke a dilemma in the viewer. You look at it and think, is this serious? Could this actually happen? Is it real? Is it fiction? They don't preach a message. They engage your intellect and your imagination by presenting this unsettling possibility.
So the ambiguity is key.
Absolutely. For critical design to really work, it needs to exist in this strange space simultaneously in our familiar world and in a world that doesn't exist yet. It has to challenge us without being so weird that we just dismiss it as art, but also without being so normal that it just gets absorbed into the everyday without making us think.
A tricky balancing act.
Very. Its real power, they argue, lies in its ability to disturb us just enough to make us realize that everyday life could be profoundly different.
Okay, let's shift gears now to an area where these ideas feel particularly urgent and maybe even confronting: biotechnology. This seems like a major frontier for critical design.
It really is. The pace of breakthroughs we're seeing in genetics, synthetic biology, neuroscience, it's staggering. And it's fundamentally moving design beyond just shaping things, objects, interfaces, to potentially designing life itself.
Hmm.
We're talking about everything from microorganisms right up to potentially humans.
It sounds like science fiction, but it's increasingly science fact, isn't it?
It is. Just think about some of the examples that are already out there, or very close. Cloned animals. Dolly the sheep was decades ago now. Genetically modified organisms for food are commonplace. There's discussion, ethical debate around designer babies, maybe even for harvesting organs.
That's deeply unsettling.
It is. And then you have things like fish and pigs engineered to glow in the dark. Transgenic goats that produce spider silk in their milk for making bulletproof vests. Lab-grown meat is becoming a reality.
Right, cultured meat.
Yeah. And even the creation of synthetic life forms. Remember Craig Venter claiming his Synthia had a computer as a parent.
Hmm.
That really pushed boundaries.
It certainly blurred the lines.
And all these developments, they have absolutely profound consequences for our understanding of what it means to be human, our relationship with nature, with technology. The real danger, Dunn and Raby warn, is that as these technologies move from the controlled environment of the lab into the marketplace, it could be consumer desire, market forces, rather than genuine therapeutic need or careful ethical consideration that ends up driving how they're used.
So the risk is we end up with designer pets that glow before we figured out the ethics of designer babies.
Potentially, yes.
Huh.
Or trivial applications driven by novelty or commerce, overshadowing serious ethical debate. And this is where they argue design needs to move upstream.
Upstream, meaning?
Meaning, instead of just designing the final applications of these technologies, the products, the services design needs to get involved much earlier in shaping the debate around the implications.
Yeah.
Ethical, social, cultural implications.
Designing implications, not just applications. That's a powerful idea. So how do designers do that? Can you give us some of those useful fictions that explore these biotech implications?
Sure, there are some really striking examples. One is by James King called Dressing the Meat of Tomorrow. This project imagines shaping lab-grown meat not into familiar steak shapes, but into aesthetically designed, maybe organ-like forms, like a beautifully sculpted liver or kidney shape,
Why would you do that?
to try and overcome the yuck factor associated with meat grown in a lab. But it also immediately prompts provocative questions like, would vegetarians eat this since no animal was killed? Could we theoretically eat lab-grown human meat, maybe cloned from a celebrity?
Whoa. Okay, that definitely pushes buttons. It gets right at our gut feelings about what's natural or acceptable.
Exactly. It uses aesthetics to trigger ethical reflection. Another, perhaps darker example is Emily Hayes' Manufacturing Monroe. This project envisioned a future where tissue engineering is trivialized, reduced to producing grotesque celebrity souvenirs. Things like sheets of cloned John F. Kennedy foreskin or miniature Marilyn Monroe breasts grown in a lab.
Oh, wow. That's deeply disturbing.
It is, and it's meant to be. It raises serious questions about the potential for extreme commercialization and objectification when we can manipulate biology so easily.
A stark warning. What else?
There's Kevin Grennan's The Smell of Control, Trust, Focus, Fear. This proposed designing deliberately repulsive-looking robots, but equipping them with tissue-engineered glands that secrete hormones to manipulate human emotions and behavior.
Robots using hormones? Like what?
Well, imagine a surgical robot spraying oxytocin, the trust hormone, to calm a patient before an operation. Or a factory robot emitting the scent of male sweat, which some studies suggest can calm women. Or even a bomb disposal robot designed to produce the smell of fear to heighten alertness.
That's incredibly manipulative, using biology against us via machines.
Right. And Grennan presented these just as drawings, emphasizing their fictional status. But the project forces us to ask, how far are we willing to go to achieve seamless human technology interaction? What are the hidden costs?
It questions the whole idea of seamlessness if it involves manipulating our basic biology.
Exactly. Then there's Revital Cohen's Life Support. This proposed using transgenic animals as living, external medical devices or companions. For instance, a specially bred sheep that could function as a living kidney dialysis machine for a human patient.
A dialysis sheep.
Yeah. It immediately triggers what you might call speculative ethics. What kind of relationship would that be? What are our responsibilities to such an animal? It completely reframes our connection to other species.
That blurs lines in a very profound way.
It does. Or consider AI Hasagawa's I Want to Deliver a Shark.
Mm.
This explored a scenario where a woman chooses to use her own reproductive capability not for human children, but to help conserve endangered species. Specifically, she imagines gestating and giving birth to a small endangered shark species using artificial womb technology and her own body.
Wow. Giving birth to a shark.
It's a radical idea,
That
and it
does.
raises fundamental questions about the purpose of female reproductive power. Is it solely for human reproduction? Could it, or should it, be used for interspecies care?
That really challenges deep-seated assumptions.
And one more, Kobe Barhad's All That I Am. This project examined the concept of self by taking the idea of genetic determinism to an absurd extreme. It imagined creating a transgenic mouse model using genetic material bought online, supposedly from Elvis Presley, and then placing this Elvis mouse in environments designed to simulate key aspects of Elvis's life, Graceland, Las Vegas, etc.
An Elvis mouse living in a tiny Graceland. That's bizarrely fascinating.
Isn't it? It uses absurdity to question how much our genes define us, the ethics of genetic ownership, and the very idea of recreating a self.
These projects are amazing. They don't provide answers, do they? They just generate really difficult, important questions.
That's exactly their purpose. They occupy this vital territory between current reality and the seemingly impossible. And by doing so, they create a space where we can debate the potential ethical, cultural, social, political implications of these powerful technologies before they become widespread, entrenched realities. It's about foresight through fiction. And this idea connects to a broader concept, using design to map unreality, to build fictional worlds. Much like literature does, design can create these self-contained fictional worlds that act as experimental labs for testing out new ideas, new values, new systems.
So not just single provocative objects, but entire imagined contexts.
Exactly. And these aren't just for entertainment like a novel might be. They're intended as tools for reflection, for critique, and maybe even for inspiration.
How does this world building and design differ from, say, traditional storytelling in a book or film? You mentioned plot and characters aren't always the starting point.
Right. That's often a key difference. These design fictions frequently start not with a character arc or a plot progression, but with an alternative premise. Maybe alternative laws, different ethical frameworks, unusual political systems, strange social beliefs.
So the what if is about the system itself.
Often, yes. And then the designer translates these abstract concepts into tangible material expressions. Often these are small objects, images, or scenarios that act as synecdoches.
Synecdoche, that's where a part represents the whole, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So a single object or vehicle might be designed to encapsulate the core values and logic of an entire fictional society. Now, while scientific possibility usually acts as a boundary, other aspects, ethics, psychology, economics, can be pushed, stretched right to their breaking point within these fictional worlds.
Can you give some literary parallels, authors who build these kinds of extrapolated worlds?
Sure. Dunn and Ravi mention authors like Philip K. Dick, whose novels often explore futures where absolutely everything is marketized, commodified.
Like, do androids dream of electric sheep?
Precisely. Or Margaret Atwood's Oryx and Crake. That novel brilliantly extrapolates from current trends in genetic engineering and corporate power to create this chilling post-apocalyptic world filled with transgenic animals and the commercial exploitation of life itself.
A powerful cautionary tale based on current science.
Definitely. They also mention Will Self's The Book of Dave, where a future society's bizarre customs and brutality are all based on the misinterpreted diary of a crazed London taxi driver. It's a darkly funny exposure of how dogma can arise from absurdity.
That was intense.
And China Miéville's novel, The City in the City. It takes a simple idea, a border between two places, and reimagines it in this incredible way. Two cities occupy the same physical space, but their citizens are trained from birth to psychologically unsee the other city, its inhabitants, its buildings. It makes you completely rethink space, perception, and social division.
Wow, that's a mind-bending concept. So how does design do this kind of world building?
Well, one example they give is from AMO, which is Rem Koolhaas's research think tank. They created this fictional map called Anaropa. It's a map of Europe, but the countries and regions are renamed based on their dominant potential renewable energy source.
So, like what?
Like the UK and Ireland become the Isles of Winds, Spain becomes Solar Kingdom, Nordic countries are geothermal power.
Ah, I see. A simple visual intervention.
Exactly. It's just a map, a single image, But it's incredibly effective at sparking debate about future European identities, energy politics, regional cooperation. It makes abstract energy strategies feel tangible, territorial.
That's clever. What else?
Thomas Thwaites' The Toaster Project is another kind of world building, in a way.
The guy who tried to build a toaster completely from scratch, sourcing all the raw materials?
That's the one. By undertaking this absurdly complex quest just to make a cheap, everyday object, he revealed the hidden world, the vast, intricate global systems of extraction, manufacturing, and logistics that lies behind even the simplest products we own.
It makes you see the mundane toaster as representing a whole world of complexity we usually ignore.
Precisely. And another example is Sasha Poflev's project, the Golden Institute.
Uh-huh.
This imagined an alternate history where Jimmy Carter won the 1980 U.S. election instead of Reagan.
Okay, a historical divergence point.
Right, and in this alternate timeline, Carter's focus on renewable energy leads to the creation of this fictional research body, the Golden Institute. The project then visualizes the kind of technologies this institute might have developed, things like giant lightning harvesters or energy-generating freeway surfaces. It fleshes out a world based on a different set of political priorities.
So it shows how different technological paths might emerge from different political choices.
Exactly. It makes the connection between ideology and technology explicit through fiction.
Okay, this really sets the stage for what sounds like one of Dunn and Raby's biggest projects in this vein. The United Microkingdoms. This sounds like designing whole societies.
It really is. The United Microkingdoms, or UMK, is one of their most comprehensive thought experiments. It's a speculative design project that takes these ideas of world building to a whole new level. They imagine an alternative near-future England that is devolved, broken up into 4 distinct, independent microkingdoms.
4 Englands, why?
Each microkingdom is defined by a very specific combination of political ideology and technological reliance. They deliberately mixed left-right and authoritarian-libertarian leanings with different technological bases. And their goal, as the science fiction author Bruce Sterling described it, was explicitly to tell worlds rather than stories.
Tell worlds. Okay, how do they do that?
They use transport vehicles as the main synecdoche, that part representing the whole for each society. The design of the main mode of transport in each kingdom was meant to embody its core values, its social structure, its relationship with technology and nature.
Fascinating. So what were these 4 kingdoms and their vehicles?
Okay, first up you have the Digitarians. Ideologically, they're positioned as right-wing and authoritarian. Their society revolves around digital technology, total surveillance, and an extreme market-driven ethos, where being a citizen and being a consumer are basically the same thing.
Familiar in some ways.
Doesn't it? Nature, for them, is just a resource to be exploited. Governance might be by algorithms or technocrats. It's presented as dystopian, yet disturbingly recognizable.
And their transport.
Their vehicle is the Digicar. It's an electric, fully autonomous, self-driving car. But the key thing is the dashboard display. Instead of speed or fuel, it shows money versus time. Travel is completely monetized.
Paper mile taken to the extreme.
Exactly. Roads are priced dynamically based on demand. Companies can bulk buy priority access for their vehicles. Status is measured by your footprint, how much road space you take up, and privacy, whether your journey data is shared or kept private, which costs more, of course.
Wow.
The design aesthetic is simple, utilitarian, almost appliance-like. And their landscape is imagined as vast stretches of tarmac with markings only machines can read. No room for nature or human messiness.
A very sterile, controlled vision. Okay, who's next?
Next are the bioliberals. They represent a kind of left-wing libertarian ideology. Their society is based on social democracy, but heavily reliant on biotechnology and aiming for symbiosis with nature. They value freedom and choice, but within ecological limits.
So using biology differently.
Yes, biology is central. Nature is enhanced and engineered to help meet human needs, but crucially, people also adapt their own needs and lifestyles to match available resources. Citizens are encouraged to produce their own energy, grow their own food, maybe even their own products. They're essentially farmers, cooks, and gardeners of technology as well as plants.
And their car, the biocar.
The biocar. This is imagined as being organically grown, maybe using modified organisms, and fueled by biofuels. It's extremely lightweight and highly customized to the individual owner. But visually, it's the opposite of the sleek Digicar. It's deliberately slow, maybe a bit bulky, messy, even smelly.
Smelly?
Yeah, maybe from the biofuels or the organic process. It's made of materials that look like abstracted skin, bone, and muscle. Maybe the wheels are powered by artificial muscles that look like jelly. It's totally non-aerodynamic because it follows a different logic, a biological logic, not the logic of speed and fossil fuels that shapes our current car design dreams.
That paints a really vivid, contrasting picture.
Yeah.
Skin and bone cars versus digital pods. Okay, two more kingdoms.
Two more. Third, we have the anarcho-evolutionists. They fall into the right-wing libertarian quadrant. Their core idea is to largely abandon complex external technologies and instead focus on maximizing human capabilities.
Enhancing humans, not machines.
Exactly. Through intensive physical and mental training, but also through DIY biohacking, self-experimentation with genetics or implants. The idea is that humans should modify themselves to live within the planet's limits rather than modifying the planet endlessly.
That's a radical inversion.
It is. There's very little state regulation. Society runs on trust, reputation, and voluntary agreements. The individual human is absolutely central.
So what about their transport if they've abandoned technology?
Well, they don't have cars. Transport relies on human power, wind power, or genetically modified animals they've bred for specific purposes. For long-distance travel, they might use something called a very large bike, VLB. Imagine a huge multi-person bicycle, maybe steered by the whole group leaning together.
Like a giant tandem.
Sort of, but maybe more complex. The elderly or very young might be carried in special pods on the VLB, perhaps entertaining the others during the journey. Different clans might evolve around specific forms of transport, even developing distinct physiques suited to their chosen mode of travel.
Wow, society's shaping biology.
And they've created new animal hybrids through genetic modification, like the hawks, a cross between a horse and an ox, bred for strength to pull heavy loads, or the pitsky, a pit bull husky mix, for pulling smaller loads and providing protection.
Hawkses and pitskis, it sounds like something out of fantasy, but grounded in biotech.
Exactly. It pushes the boundaries of the plausible.
Oh,
Okay, and the final kingdom, the communonuclearists. They occupy the left-wing authoritarian space. This is imagined as a strict, no-growth, steady-state society with a limited population.
no growth. How do they live?
They live entirely self-contained lives aboard a colossal, 3-kilometer-long, nuclear-powered mobile landscape. Essentially a gigantic train that slowly crawls across the country.
They live on a train. A nuclear train.
A nuclear-powered land train, yes. The surrounding environment outside the train is allowed to revert to a kind of pristine, naturalized nature paradise, which they observe but don't inhabit. On the train, the state provides absolutely everything. Life is highly disciplined, centrally planned, collectivized.
Sounds very controlled.
Extremely. Dunn and Raby describe them as voluntary prisoners of pleasure. They live in relative luxury, with all needs met, but under strict rules, including a rigid one-out, one-in policy for population control. Births are only permitted when someone dies or leaves.
Voluntary prisoners of pleasure. That's quite a phrase. What's life like on this train?
The inhabitants live inside structures designed to look like rolling hills or mountains built onto the train's platform. These contain everything: apartments, labs, factories, hydroponic gardens for food, gyms, even nightclubs. On the open tops of these mountains, there might be swimming pools or small isolation huts for quiet contemplation. It's this strange mix of hedonism and extreme discipline. And interestingly, a kind of demilitarized zone of thriving wildlife follows in the train's wake, benefiting from the lack of permanent human settlement.
A rolling utopia, or dystopia, depending on your view, leaving regenerated nature behind it. That's an incredibly complex vision.
It really is. And what's so powerful about the whole UMK project is how deeply these scenarios explore the trade-offs. Each kingdom offers benefits, but also demands sacrifices. They give tangible, visual form to these radically different value systems.
It creates this multiverse of worlds, as you said, coexisting conceptually, and each one forces you to question the assumptions embedded in our own world.
Exactly. It makes you wonder, doesn't it, what our own everyday objects, our cars, our phones, our homes, might be silently saying about our society's values without us even consciously thinking about it.
Absolutely. It's like holding up a series of funhouse mirrors to our own reality.
Indeed. What this project, and others like it, ultimately show is that design can be this incredibly potent tool, not just for making better products, but for outlining the very contours of possible societies, possible futures.
So wrapping this all up, what we've really seen today is the immense power, the potential of speculative design. It's not about design providing easy solutions or definitively better ways in that traditional affirmative sense.
No, it's much more about proposing, about suggesting, about opening up possibilities. Its real value, Dunn and Raby argue, lies simply in what it is the object, the scenario itself, and crucially, how it makes you, the viewer, the participant, feel.
That feeling of provocation, of questioning.
Yes. It encourages you, it prompts you to question the norms of everyday life, to actively imagine how things could genuinely be different. They talk about it providing a kind of complicated pleasure. It's not always comfortable, but it's enriching, expands our mental lives, broadens our horizons.
By offering these glimpses of alternatives, it kind of loosens the grip that present reality has on our imagination, on our ability to dream of something else.
Beautifully put. That's exactly it. It helps us see that the way things are isn't the only way they could be.
And ultimately, the closing thought from Din and Raby is quite profound. If our values, our mental models, our ethics actually change, then the reality that flows from that worldview, the reality we collectively build, will also inevitably change. So, the final question really comes back to you listening right now. As you look around at the world today, with all its challenges and possibilities, what kind of future will you choose to imagine and perhaps begin to act towards?